All right, in this video, my goal is to teach you everything that you need to know about advanced color styling using Elementor on a WordPress website. The first thing that you need to know about colors in Elementor are the global site settings. We're going to use the site settings to adjust the global colors. These colors are colors that you can reference across the entire website, and it makes it so that you don't have to keep looking up the unique colors that you need to use. You don't have to keep copying and pasting them in from a spreadsheet or a note somewhere. You can save them right into the website, and these are kind of like anchors. If you anchor or attach your, let's say, your headings to a specific color, and then you change that color, the headings are all going to change. So these aren't just used for reference. These are actually functional colors. So I'm going to give you an example. First of all, primary, secondary, text, and accent. These are 4 types of colors. You can change the name of these colors, but the fact that there are 4 colors, notice how it's a system color, it cannot be deleted, whereas these 2 can be deleted. These are colors that I have added. These are colors that I've modified. However, Elementor requires that you have at least 4 colors available all the time. Those simply cannot be deleted. You can choose not to use them if you'd like, but they will be in the site settings. You can add another color simply by clicking add, and you can select something on the color wheel. And notice how right here the color is changing as I play with these bars. This is the transparency setting. Now, this is not a white to black setting. This right here is your white to black setting. If you want white, you go up to the top corner. If you want black, you can go to this bottom corner or anywhere along this point. If you want to go color to white and kind of fade out of the, a really bold, strong color, let's go to like a bright, crazy green. We can make it softer and more pastel by sliding into the whites. We can make it heavier by going towards the dark, but we make it transparent by doing this. Now, technically, you could go, anywhere you want. You could choose a color and then go transparent. And if the background is white, your text is now effectively white because the background is showing through it. However, that is not the way that you want to create white text. Now, typically when I'm building a new website, I always add 3 colors that get used a lot. So black, white, and I'm going to put it here, and it's going to be transparent. Now, notice the difference between the 6 Fs and then 0, 0 versus 6 Fs and no zeros. Watch these last 2 numbers as, well, characters, can be letters, as I scroll through here. They disappear, the last 2 characters disappear when there's no transparency. So this is called a hex code. And hex codes are normally 6 characters long or digits long. But the moment you start to add any transparency, it adds 2 more. And those characters reference the degree of transparency. 0, 0 means completely transparent. You can also use the color sampler to pull a color and use that color in your color palette. I don't use that very often. You can also clear your changes and go back to the default setting with that, but that's just fine. I'm going to leave that on transparent. I'm going to click update. Now, there are a couple places that you can apply these colors on a global level. We're not going to do that here. We're going to do that in typography. So we can say that the body text color, so like text paragraphs, are always going to be this text color. So that's what I mean by the way that we can anchor and I'm going to make that a bit darker. We can anchor something to that color, and obviously when I click update and refresh the pages and stuff, that changes. So let's see that. Okay, notice how that went dark. It's because it's referencing a global color which has changed. And as long as that little world icon, the globe icon, is blue, that means it's referencing a global color. If I click over here and select my own color, globe is no longer blue because we are selecting something specific for this element. We're going to go back and select text as the global color here. Now notice how these hyperlinks, anything that has any text that is clickable is going to be this default reddish purplish color. That's the Elementor brand color. We're going to change that to orange. And there we go. We've associated every hyperlink with that color unless explicitly decided in some other way. Notice how I can change the hover color and the normal color. So this link actually has two different color settings. One is normal, one is hovered, and that's determined here. And right now I'm making those changes for the entire website at the same time. I'm not going to deal with colors on these selectors, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and so on. I typically leave those alone unless I have a unique need for that. All right, we can change the default color for buttons. Let's make sure that every button color is white unless explicitly stated otherwise. Let's make the background hover color the primary. Let's make the text white on both. That way we don't have any issues seeing the text. And we'll play with some more of those settings, other color settings on the back end for buttons or on the front end. We can do the same with form fields. We can change the default label color. Let's make that blue. The fields, we can change the background color to a light gray. And let's make sure the text color is nice and dark inside of that. That should be good for now. Let's see. Oh, we can also change the background color for the entire website. So we can put in a background image, or we can select a background color. And so that is a default setting for the entire website. And every page that you create will adopt whatever setting you've selected here. We'll play with gradients in a little bit. We'll do that on the front end. And then mobile browser background, basically the same idea, but for phones. Okay, I think that's all we're going to touch for now. We can also change the default background colors for the header. We can do the same thing for the footer, just for kicks and giggles. Let's see where to go. All right, so notice how the footer has text that says all rights reserved, but we can't see it. So we can actually go to the copyright, change the text color to white, and now that is more visible. Okay, so let's leave the site settings and notice how we are editing the portion of the website that falls in between the header and the footer. we're going to play with the colors first for containers. All right, so we can create a background color for the section itself. Notice how we can select a color here. We can modify that color just like in the global settings. Notice how I'm making it transparent, and that kind of changes the effective color. Check this out. I'm going to, let's kind of remember this, BAE7F, blah, blah, blah. If I use this color dropper, notice how this color dropper is giving us a different code. This is giving us EDF8FE, whereas this is giving us something much different. It's because this is only looking at the outcome of the transparent section on top of a white background. So this is giving us kind of like the end result of an equation. This is giving us the first layer, this is the second layer, and this is the combined color between the two. So that's one reason I suggest being really careful with transparency. You can start experiencing colors that you did not intend when you start overlapping multiple layers where some are transparent, some aren't. The colors blend and it creates something new that you didn't intend. There are definitely cases where you would want to do that. However, in basic design, we're going to just work with solid colors. Again, you can use the color sampler. If you are working with some colors and you decide, you know what, I really like this color and I want to use this across my site for something, you can click create new global color and you can save it. You create a new name right here. You can save it as a global color in the site settings, and then you can reference it across your website. You don't need to do that very often, but when you're first building a website, that is a lot more common. Let's play with the gradient. Let's first put in some content. Let's drop in a form. What else do we want to put in here? Let's put in an icon. What else do we want to play with? That should be good for now. Yeah, we'll call it good there. Okay. So let's create a gradient background. This is the color that it has told us that we want. We may actually want to, let's flip it around. So let's change the angle. I don't remember what the default setting was for this thing, but it matters. Okay, so check this out. If we change the angle, we can tell we can essentially tell the colors which direction to slide in from. So 0 and 360 are essentially the same angle. So if we wanted to create an effect where one section kind of blends into another, this is one way that we could do that. Notice how this determines how deep the blend goes. So we could say the blend is going to be complete at 50% of the way through the section, but it's going to start at the top of the section. Now we could say it's going to start, the blend part of this is going to start 70% of the way down, and the amount of blend is only 20% of the height of the full section. So we're going from 70, so 70% from the bottom, so 70% here down to 50%, but it's more common to blend the whole section top to bottom. Now we could kind of do something like this. But yeah, there's just a lot of room to play with this. Let's change the angle again. And if we wanted to, get really fancy, we could play with some transparency so that it's not so intense, but it kind of resorts to the white, and the middle is kind of like a grayish color. So unless you have a really strong background color behind it, it kind of creates a grayish color instead of the blue to white that you're looking for. Anyway, so there's just a lot that you can do there. Let's create some. Okay, I mentioned in another video, if you add margin, that creates white space around the container you're working with. But if you create padding, that creates spacing on the inside that now adopts the same background type. So if this was a background image, we would see the image in the padding, but since it's a color, it's adopting the color into the padding around these columns. All right, let's play with the colors for text. Let's make the text color white. We can make the icon color orange, but on hover, we can make it white. Same thing with buttons. Let's go to this button. We'll say the color. Do you remember when we set up the button color in site settings? We can override that on a specific button level. So let's say normally we want buttons to be orange if they have a white background, but maybe we don't like the way that orange clashes with the blue background. And so we could say that this button should actually be white with blue text or with orange text. If you don't love the look of that, we could also create a border and make this transparent. Let's change the text color to white, and the border color is adopting the color of the text by default, but you do have control over that right here. So you could set the border to one color and text to another, but it just adopts as a default, it adopts the text color setting. With hover, we could change the background color on hover to orange. Let's say we want the border to disappear on hover. Let's see, there's a better way to do that. I think it's yeah, there's a place to do that. I don't remember the specific. Oh, I think it's right here. If we want, gosh, what was it? There is a way to adjust the border effect. I think the way that I did it in the past was right here, border color. Yeah, there we go. So if you want the border to kind of blend into the button on hover, all you do is make sure that it's the same color as the background, and the border effectively disappears. Now with the icons, that's probably all I should say right now. Remember that the container of the element can also have a background color, and that's usually in the advanced settings. So check this out. If we want to have a background color behind the element or behind the text, let's see, where did background go? So if we wanted that, you can color the container that it's in. Now, if it's in inline, then it's not going to have as much background right there. But that's kind of a different issue that we'll get into later. Just know that elements have backgrounds that are separate from the content inside of it. So the button has colors. This background can also be given colors. Icon has colors, background has colors. Text, background, same idea. All right, let's play with a couple other types of elements. Divider. This divider is basically a line that can be used to separate content. We can choose the color. We can choose the weight, which is essentially the thickness of the divider. We can do the same thing with the backgrounds of pretty much any of this content. But those are essentially the tools. No matter what type of element you're working with, you can typically change the color of the element and then the background of the element. You can usually change how things respond on hover, if they are clickable, such as elements or buttons. And form fields, you can edit all of those. You can style a form individually, separate from its global site-wide settings. So notice how you can change the default button colors for a form. Field colors and so on. And then background color, same idea. So that's how you can really customize the colors of each of the Elementor elements that you're working with. The best practice is to start with the site-wide settings, set up all your defaults the way they should be, so that when you drag in a button, 99% of the time it's already going to look the way you want it to look, because you created that in the site-wide settings. And then you only have to edit elements to make them unique in very specific scenarios. All right, that's all I'll say on advanced color options. Have some fun.